Little boy playing in the street. One clothes, no shoes on his feet. Little boy never...
Hey, everybody. This is Jon English and Aaron Underwood. This is Backseat Therapy, a brand new podcast we're trying to do. Tell us a little bit about the scope, I guess, of what we're doing.
The scope of that. Yeah, what we're doing is, since I started performing in the band, Orphan, Jon and the Abandonment, back in 2015, and touring, people got to know why they call me Orphan Jon, and it's because I am an orphan. And to tie that in, I would tell stories at the shows, little stories about my childhood and overcoming and dealing with all that was involved in my childhood, the goods and the bads. And people started asking, just said, hey, you need to write a book. And it seems to be a theme that's constantly running, especially now with social media.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I don't have time to sit down and write a book. I wouldn't even know
nobody reads books anymore. So.
That's it.
Kind of like that. Audiobook, Kindle, maybe.
There you go. And that was the key. Audiobook. Why not do something where I can explain some of the stuff about my childhood and about how I overcame it, and hopefully help people, because people always said, I wish you would write the book because people need to hear this. Not that I don't feel like I'm anything special, but it is a means that I have at my disposal for us to get together and discuss these things and hopefully help some people. At the same time, it's an audiobook / visual book too, because we're doing the podcast.
Well, the podcast format is kind of I don't know, it's blowing up. It's taken off. People have their favorite podcasts.
Yes. Mine is the Aaron and Austin show.
Oh, well.
That's mine.
But yeah, speaking of like your past, you have kind of, it's a rough past, but you survived.
Yes.
You thrived.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've done quite a bit. So I guess we start at the beginning.
Yes.
Is that what we should do?
Let's do that.
This is the beginning, episode
This
1.
would be episode 1. Let's start at the beginning. And this is also something I want to give to my kids and my grandbabies.
Oh, yeah, like the story.
The story, yeah. Why is Pops like he is? Why is Papa the way he is, kind of thing. And so it's something I want to hand down to them. So, it started, I was born in 1965. I know I don't look that old, but yeah, I am that old. And in a county hospital in Kern County, the city of Bakersfield. And from what I've been told from several reliable sources, cousins and some family members I've gotten to know over the years, that I have 3 older brothers, and I was the youngest of the 4. And what happened was there were some living conditions that were not really favorable to be raising children. My biological mother, she was raising us on her own, and it was too much for her to do. And basically the child services stepped in. Somebody made a phone call, and they came in. Yep. And they came in and picked us up. I was 8 months old. I was a little baby.
Oh, wow. And
I was in the system from that point on. And, my earliest memory, which is crazy because sometimes I think about it, how do I remember this?
At 8 months, yeah.
At 8 months. I remember being in a cradle, in a baby bed, in this place was called Shelter Care is what they called it. It was an orphanage, but it was a county-run place, and it was on Mount Vernon and in Bakersfield. And it was just a couple blocks north of the hospital I was born in. And so, I remember being in that bed and looking up, and they had a netting. They had this netting over me, and I never knew why. There was this netting over the crib that I was in. And I remember my sister, Georgia, who is, let's see here, I think she's like 6 years older than me. So she was a little child too, screaming, wanting to get to me. And I always thought it was a dream. I always thought, I must have dreamt this. And years later, I find out from my siblings and my sister that actually took place. They thought I had chicken pox, so they put the net over me. I was kind of quarantined. But my sister, because that was her baby brother, she was upset that she couldn't be there with me. And I remember that at 8 months. It's just,
that's wild.
It is wild. And I always thought I dreamt that. And that actually happened when I was a little child. And then the experiences in shelter care is it's tough, as a child, and I grew up in there. I remember going to the foster homes. There were some foster homes that were pretty rough ones, and back then, people didn't really listen to the children too much.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
There was stuff that would take place, and
you try to tell people,
right?
You try to like, hey,
and being a child, trying to convey some abuse or stuff that was going on that you were uncomfortable with. You didn't know how to say it as a child.
Yeah.
But when you would say it, the caseworker would talk to those foster parents, and they would be like, "Oh, Johnny's just lashing out. He doesn't like it because we took his toys away from him. Make some excuse."
Yeah, yeah.
And stuff like that happened, and that was the early days. That was in the late '60s.
That's all still happening.
Yes, yeah, it's true.
There's something like it's just a fundamental truth. You know what I mean? Like, it's really weird to me that like you can be born into a situation with your biological parents, and that's not so savory. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, well, straight up. Okay, your mom was a single mom, raising now 4 kids on her own.
Yeah, 4 boys and a daughter. So 5.
Well, shit, yeah. So 5 now.
And she had
That's
my
a
sister
struggle.
Georgia when she was 15.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And back in those days, in the '60s, she had older siblings. She was the youngest daughter of 6 kids.
Wow.
And so her parents shipped her off to her second oldest brother, Don Johnson, in Porterville, California, and him and his wife raised her kind of until she had the baby, because that was like a big no back.
So it was a
then.
rough situation for
It
her.
was,
anyway.
right off the bat. Yeah,
and that ball just keeps going.
Yeah.
At some point, it has to stop. It takes a concerted effort to stop it. But yeah. So
it is a
single
cycle.
mom, 5 kids now. Rough situation.
Right. And the man that she was married to left her before I was born. So he married her when she was 16, and he was 22, 21.
Yeah.
And I actually have their wedding day picture, of all things.
Yeah, really?
And I gave it to my oldest daughter, because I said, here, something you can have. Yeah. But, he left her before I was born, and there's a story behind that. It's just crazy. And I found out again years later that it was all bogus. It's just he was just messed up in the head and didn't want to stick around. That's all it was. And but see, like now, if we delve into my biological mother's side of the family, they were migrant workers back in the day.
Oh,
and
wow.
they would travel from Nevada, California a lot, and they would work in these fields.
So hard lifestyle.
It was,
begets
yes.
Another hard lifestyle.
Just,
Yeah.
My uncles, her brothers were educated men. I mean, none of them were stupid. Not that at all. They were educated, hard-working individuals. And her being the youngest daughter, kind of a little spoiled, I think. And, things happen. She met somebody and ended up pregnant, had my sister Georgia, and then married Jack Sarnowski and had 4 boys with him. And he left, like I said, before I was born. So I never met him.
Wow.
Never in my life did I ever meet him. And we'll cover it on another episode, but I've discovered I have siblings from him and where he moved. Not too far from Wichita, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, really?
And started a new life, a new family, and I didn't exist. My 3 older brothers didn't exist. It was like totally nothing about us.
Huh.
But anyways, so that's where I started, and I was in the system, and you go through some stuff, and I it sucks because some of my early memories is of the abuse. I don't have very many memories of good things as a kid. And I don't know why. Maybe it was because it embedded in my mind so hard what was going on that's all
And I also
triggered.
I think that's a human nature thing. It's like the Yelp phenomenon. You know what I mean? We're only going to talk about the bad shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Nobody's on Yelp going, this restaurant was amazing. I
right.
really loved everything
Right,
about it. It's like, it's a human nature thing to just focus on that negative.
It's like I'm my own critic, in a way, because it's easy to criticize people. It's easy to criticize everything. It doesn't take much to point out the shortcomings and the failures and make it into a big thing. But it's kind of hard to sit there and praise people. It's just human nature, like you said, to give a good recommendation. And it actually, that part is so good for the soul, though.
Yeah.
Something about that.
If you realize that, and start doing that,
lifting one another up. It's amazing.
It seems like if you can put good things out into the world, you attract those same good things.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's been my life. Like I said, my memories. It just sucks that I don't have a lot of good memories growing up, and I know there's some good ones there, but I can't seem to remember them. Right. But in spite of all of that, I just what I went through. There's stuff where I was sexually abused, and that's some of my earliest memories. Things that happened to me in that realm, and it's like I don't.
At what age do you think that was? Like your earlier memories?
I would say I was around 4.
Damn, really?
Yeah, it was before Polly, my biological mother, got us back, and it was by a young man that abused me, and it's just one of those things where sometimes I think to myself, did I dream that? And it's like, no, that actually happened.
At 4, that's wild.
And then I talked to, I have some cousins that I was adopted at one point for a brief moment. That's why my last name's English now. And I had some cousins that went through some stuff that was abused by an older man that was our adopted uncle. And I thought it was just me. And then come to find out, his actual biological nephews, he abused them too. And it's like, wow. Yeah. So then you think, that stuff, it's just crazy that I went through it. And but what I realized is as I got older, there was that turning point where I could stay angry and upset and feel guilty and all of that. And I turned into a total nutcase when I was a child because of it.
No.
I would do some really stupid stuff.
Well, you were a child. Man.
Yeah.
Okay. You weren't like mentally capable of processing some of that stuff.
That's it. And that's why I think a lot of people at times forget.
Yeah.
The children in the foster system, they can't understand why they act the way they do. And
yeah, why they lie and make up stories.
Exactly. Why do they steal? This possessive thing. What's that all about? And it's
why do you hoard food in your room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've been conditioned in a way to feel like it's you against the world.
Yeah.
And you got to have something to hold on to feel like you're part of something. And I stole when I was a kid. I remember stealing from stores, and a couple times I got caught and had to go back and apologize to the manager and all that. Oh, yeah. Which, normal kids that have families have went through that too.
We go through some of that.
Yeah.
So, for those that are watching the podcast, I have been about 2 years adopting our son, and it has been its own
adventure.
It's an adventure. That's a great word for it. Ups and downs, like you said, but that's life, isn't it?
Right. And that's why I came to you and said, Aaron, I'd like to do this with you, because your viewpoint is as that parent that's decided. I've always said this about being adopted. When you're born into a family, that's a beautiful thing. That to
sure.
me is just a natural occurrence. So the affection between the child and the parents is going to be there. It's natural. When you adopt a child, they weren't born into your family.
Oh, you're right.
It's you literally making that decision that you love that child and you want to be in that child's life and nurture them and help them become a...
So that's kind of been the story of my life.
Right.
Okay, so when me and Justin got together, there were obstacles to overcome here in South Central Kansas, where everybody is so accepting.
Yes.
And, that's not it. But yeah, so there's obstacles to overcome, but we made a choice and we decided and we're committed. And so when time comes and we decide that we want to adopt, he was chosen. You know what I mean?
Right.
I always tell him, I'm like, yeah, everybody's born into their family, whether they like them or not. We chose you.
Yes.
Yep. And we've had to choose and fight for everything.
Right.
And
that's
our
a
lives,
powerful
man.
thing.
That's just how that is.
That's a very powerful thing. And so, to me, it's almost like we can say we can unpack that. I have issues personally, and this is my own personal opinion. I don't put it on blast. I'm very reserved about putting anything out on social media about my politics and social, stances stuff, because in the music industry or any basic industry, if you want to succeed, again, it's easy to get on that Yelp attitude.
Yeah.
And I found that out recently.
Just preach the negative.
Yeah, it's just everybody wants to pile on you, and there's always going to be the pros and cons and everything in life. But to me, I just can never understand, and I have a problem with it when you have all these children that are in the system and they're suffering, because they are suffering. I don't care.
Oh, yeah, man.
I don't care how many psychiatrists you go to, because they sent me to a lot of them when I was a kid, constantly trying to figure out what was wrong with Johnny. Why is Johnny wet in the bed? Why is Johnny cussing out the teacher? Why is Johnny peeing on girls out of a tree in the schoolyard? Why is Johnny an absolute nutcase? And they would send me these places. And it wasn't because I was a nutcase, really. It's just because I didn't know how to conduct myself. Here's something
you were never taught.
No, and the thing is this: I will never be able to know what it's like to be raised by a mom and dad as a child. I have no idea what that's like to have a mom and dad, and it kind of sucks at times, because when I have friends that lose their parents, lose their mom. Close friends of mine that I knew their parents when I was in high school and hung out with them at their home. And I loved their parents because they were just wonderful, wonderful people. Yeah. I don't know how to empathize, and it irritates me. I can't do that. I just don't know what that's like to lose a parent like that. And so I feel funny, at times, or odd, I should say, expressing that sympathy.
Interesting. Yeah, I get it, though.
Yeah, and so that's why, like a child. So to get back, what I was going to my point was, I get irritated with people that have a problem with lesbians or gay couples adopting. It's like you would rather that child be in a orphanage where they got to scrap and fight for everything they can, because it's literally like a prison. I don't know about today, but I know when I was there, it's literally like a prison. You had a certain clothes you had to wear, jeans, white T-shirt. Yeah. You had bedtime. Everybody went in the dorm in your beds and bunk beds, and you went to sleep. And then they get you up, and you had, it's just, and it's like, okay, who's the toughest kid in the building? And you had to bow to them. It's all that crap. And I just don't understand why people have an issue when you have a loving couple. It don't matter what their sex are to be. They're loving, caring couple.
Well, it's a home.
It's exactly. And they're going to give a child an opportunity in a positive direction they would never have.
Well, I mean, and I'm not going to say that every foster situation is better than...
Right.
I mean, like I was saying earlier, sometimes, you leave a bad situation with your biological parents just to get into another bad situation in the foster care system. Yep. You know what I mean? It's out of the frying pan into the fire sometimes, but...
Yeah.
But try.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Wouldn't you rather just try?
Yep, exactly. What is it going to hurt?
And I do hate those foster homes that are just
money.
Just taking in the money.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
The
kids are wearing pants that don't fit, but I got a new motorcycle.
Right.
That.
And that is the part of the system that I don't like. Is that people have well intentions. They're really good people, and they start off. I think some of them do start off caring, but then you get that paycheck, and that's all it is. Just a revolving door. Okay, this kid turns 18. The state says you're on your own. Let's get some more kids in here.
And it is worded. The money that you receive from the state per foster kid, it is worded as compensation.
Yes.
So that's your money. That's not the kid's money. Mm-hmm. And then over here in another section, this is really all you have to provide for the kid. Is this little paragraph over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's it.
It's worded messed up, and it gets taken advantage of, unfortunately.
It does. And eventually, at least in my life, I got to the place where I realized that was the game.
Yeah.
And I got to where I realized people were taking me in not because they really cared about me.
Yeah.
It was just a good check they were getting monthly.
Yeah.
And
exactly right.
And I got the least amount of everything
Yeah,
possible.
you got the minimal.
Yes.
The bare minimum that,
Even when
that
I
you
was
are legally obligated to.
right.
To
Even when
provide.
I was in homes with their children, siblings, foster siblings, where their actual children, it was obvious they were. And I get that.
Preferred.
Some of that's natural because that is their child. That's theirs. And then I'm just kid that they're taking in. But it does weigh. That affects your mind.
Oh yeah, I'm
And
sure.
and it makes it to where you eventually say, I'm not acceptable. You just accept that. Being you're just not acceptable in society.
There's been a lot of work recently done on mapping in the brain what happens through trauma, right? And so the thing that handles all the good, happy, nurturing kind of stuff is these frontal cortex here. In the back of your brain, that's where the fight or flight stuff develops. Okay, so kids in trauma, this is the active part of their brain. They build that up,
Right.
and the fight or flight thing, that's what takes over. So this part here, the nurturing, the good stuff part of the brain, like the naturally developing part, that is delayed. It's not being used because this part of the brain is taking over.
Right.
So when you do finally get into a safe space, then you can start working on this. But it's really hard because this area that goes fight or flight, that's
like,
really taking over.
Yeah, it's the bully in the room.
Yeah,
it's I'm controlling the situation.
It's hard to take that over.
Yeah, and then that's where you turn into having a child that lashes out
all day,
fights at school, steals things. It's just, I did it.
Yeah.
I did that. And
we're going through it, man.
It's it's a kind of a fine line as a parent because you know what's going on here. You kind of gotten, okay, I know what's happening here.
Yeah.
There's some lashing out. There's some bad behaviors, but then it's hard to figure out how to navigate that because you don't want to be too overbearing in a discipline because it causes that back here to go, I'll show you. And then sometimes they run away.
Oh, yeah.
Mine
Took off the other day because he was mad. We got him off the video game. Just took off walking. I had to drive around and find him. It took me like 20 minutes to find him.
And I did that.
Yeah.
And I did it for two reasons. Looking back, I didn't know those two reasons then. But looking back, it was a cry for help. Because do they really care about me? Well, I'm going to leave and we'll find out. We'll see if they freaking really care about me. They're going to come look for me. There was that. And the other part was I'm pissed because they don't understand me. They just don't understand what I'm going through. And that is a normal thing for a child because
and it's honest. They don't understand.
I have 6 kids, and they're mine, and I'm thankful that they've never had to go through what I went through. But even dealing with them, there is that. It's just those teen years and all that.
Yeah.
We got a mutual friend that's dealing with teen years, and it's like, hang in there, man, hang in there. It's going to get better.
Yep.
It does
for sure. So let me ask you this, okay? The lack of, like you say, traditional parent environment. How did you, I guess, raise your kids without that knowledge, that nurture? You know what I mean? Like we typically try to parent how we were parented. It's an instinctive thing.
That's
it's just
true.
like kind of the way that goes. It all rolls.
Yeah, and again, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
I can't relate to someone like you on that aspect of having parents that raised me. So for me, all I can say, it was tough. My oldest suffered the most, obviously.
Well, kind of the silver lining in that, though. Okay?
Yeah, there is. There is.
Without... We're talking about like generational legacy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We're
migrant workers.
Yep, it's a
struggling.
cycle. There is a cycle.
Your mom, single mother of 5, struggling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. You were able to maybe break out of that mold and maybe not parent in that generational legacy of Struggleville. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I was adopted. So when I was 10 years old by Gary English and his wife Jessie, and that's another episode, probably a couple episodes delve into that.
Yeah.
But so I had a brief moment in my life where there was that family kind of foundation to draw from.
Nice.
Not positive in some ways. My adopted dad was a workaholic. He worked all the time. He was actually a recovering alcoholic, and he was when they got us. He was a raging alcoholic, but he turned the corner on that when I was about 11, 12. But anyway, so I had a little bit to work from when I started my family with my wife and everything, and at the time, I should say, that's another story. But yeah, the roughest part was the oldest,
Yeah.
because she had to deal with all of my messed up stuff.
Yeah.
I was attending a church, a very, very, very conservative Pentecostal church, which is, that's another episode, but that actually helps. I'll just say this: spirituality is good for people, wherever you find it.
Yeah.
I think it's good because it's about the inner soul, the mind, and everything, and trying to improve yourself and be a good person in society.
Yeah, for sure.
So that helped me a lot in raising the kids, starting off. But yeah, it was, God, it was tough. It was tough. There was a point where my children's mother, when we were married, we've been divorced for quite some time, but we're still good friends, really good friends. But there was a point when my oldest was a teenager, early teens, and going through that early teen thing.
Oh God, yeah.
And she told me once, she said, if you don't back off, she's going to hate you and have nothing to do with you. And I remember telling her, no, I don't think so. Because she's going to grow up and realize, and I knew this because of what I went through as a kid, and she's going to grow up and realize, dang, Dad does love me. He cared about me. And I said, we're going to be okay. And I kid you not, when she turned 18, and reality of life hit you right smack in the face, we were out one night, and she told me that. She said, Pops, and she's the one who started calling me Pops. All the kids now call me Pops. For some reason, she always called me that. She goes, Pops, you were right. I wish I'd listened to you back then, and I would save myself a lot of trouble. And that was a watershed moment for me emotionally, because it was like all of a sudden we connected.
Well, that and you got the validation of like, okay, I didn't screw that all up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't totally blow this one up.
Yeah.
And she today is just one of the coolest, most interesting young souls anybody could ever meet. And everybody that's ever met my oldest, Heather June, they've said that. My God, she is such an amazing person. She's a very, very giving person. And of her time, her efforts, she's a tattoo artist, lives in Reno. And I'm so proud of her. I just love her to death. And we've been through all that stuff, and she's helped me grow. And that was a lot of it too, was that it was a lot of healing that needed to take place in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't know, and I couldn't, and there was times I'd use that crutch. Well, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know how to, and then, that don't work with a child. They don't give a rat's ass that you don't know what you're doing.
It's not a crutch. It's an honest feeling.
It is.
But, yeah, the kid doesn't care. Kid still needs you. You're going to have to survive. You're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, she's still pissed at me
Yeah.
about it. But then, things changed. Once she got older and became my best friend, and we'd run around and hang out together and do stuff, and I love her to death. I'm so proud of her.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. There's always going to be that. How did I do this right? Did I do that right? Questioning myself, because I don't know. I can't go to my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, when I was being an asshole, how did you handle that?" I didn't have that. Trump card or what do you want to call it, joker in the deck to go to and say, "Hey, I'm going to throw this out here. Hey, Dad, this one I'm going through. What do you? How should I approach this?" There was none of that.
Yeah.
And so,
for me, it's been hard. I thought I had the best birth control known to man, straight up. You know what I mean? I didn't think I would have, I didn't think I'd be having kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I just kind of lived my life like that, you know? It was me and Justin versus the world, you know what I mean?
Right.
And let's just go do that. That's fine.
Yep.
Austin always says, you should have just stayed gay, dude. I don't know why you had to have kids, why you had to do the whole thing. Should have just stayed gay. You know? Sometimes I wonder if I should have, but it is a growing experience, like you
Yes,
said.
it is.
I'm learning a lot about my own self and
Your own temperament, you know, what
yeah.
you allow, and then you'll rethink it. Had I allowed too much there?
Yeah.
Or did I really come down too hard? Or
yeah.
so
all
you're
that.
you're in a similar situation what I went through, no doubt.
No.
But that's growing up, right? Growing up as an adult, as a parent, and growing with your child.
Well, I thought I had grown up,
Yeah.
and turns out I'm just getting started.
Yeah,
you know what
you
I mean?
are.
Like,
And it never ends.
yeah, that's the shitty part. Isn't it?
I think it
That's
kind of. I think it actually gets really good is when you have grandbabies.
yeah.
Because, I mean, the going joke, of course, when you have grandbabies, you can spoil the crap out of them and send them home to their parents all psyched up on sugars and all that and spinning like a Tasmanian devil, and you don't have to worry about it. And that's kind of the funny part. But the truth is, to me, it's like having my kids all over again. But this time I know what to say. I have a better idea of what to do
Yeah,
with
see,
my grandkids.
I've only been a dad for 2 years, and I'm afraid I'm going to have grandkids in the next like 2 or 3 years. The way my kids go, man. Could be. He just found girls. not too long
Oh,
ago,
yeah,
so-
he's at that age to discover them.
Yeah, he's like,
oh
oh,
my gosh,
man, this is
yeah.
the best thing ever. So,
I remember my boy was that way. My
Yeah.
son Clay, his sisters get so upset, because when they go through puberty, they start stinking real bad,
oh God.
and for some reason they're like terrified of water. They won't take a shower,
Okay,
won't take
if
a
they're
bath.
terrified of water, how come they're taking 30-minute showers? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just sitting there going,
well, now
come
they're
on,
going
man.
through that phase where they're
Yeah.
discovering some things.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
But my son was like that, and his sisters get so upset. They protected their brother, and I love that. That's what I love about my kids. I always I raised my kids with a couple things in mind. One of them was, that's your sibling. You can talk shit about your sibling. You can run them down. You can pick on them and all that, and you guys are going to figure it out. But you never allow your friends to ever treat them the way, disrespectfully.
No.
And my kids were like that. And there was a couple of times where that happened. One of their friends would say something shitty to one of their other siblings, and they flat told them, no, you ain't talking to my brother, or you ain't talking to my sister like that.
Yeah,
Not going to happen. Boom. And I love that about my kids. They're very tight. So when Clay was growing up and he's going through that stage, and he just didn't care about brushing his teeth, he didn't care about taking a bath, he didn't wear deodorant, and they would complain to me about it. And I said, well, you have to tell him, Clay, get in there and take a freaking bath, son. Yeah. And eventually I said, don't worry about it, girls. He's going to discover the opposite sex. And when that happens, trust me.
Then he's going to start getting a lot cleaner.
Be squeaky clean. And sure shit, when he got in high school, about his, I don't know, might have been his sophomore year. I have to ask his sisters. They would know better than I would. Recollect it anyways. But yeah, he did. He's like, boom, wow, girls. Oh, man. Shaving, taking a bath, putting on deodorant, cologne. And he was a good-looking boy. So, I mean, he didn't have no problem with that. But yeah, back to the the sex part. So my kids were born when my first one was born when I was 23, and my last one when I was 28. And the kind of neat thing about that is I was young, so I get to enjoy them now as adults. But then they already giving me grandbabies, and I'm not that old. But it was kind of neat when I turned 50. I had my first grandchild was born, and that was kind of neat. So I'm getting to enjoy these grandbabies as they're growing. And so when Liliana is 18, I'll be 68, and I'm cool with that. I mean, I feel like I'll still be pretty young. It's not that old to me.
That's not terrible.
It's a number, but yeah, so that's that part of life.
Yeah, I always say it's not about the age; it's the mileage.
That is true. And you know what? That's I think it has a lot to do with me because I don't have a lot of mileage.
Yeah.
I really don't. I spent 18 years of my life in a church.
Oh, well, there you go.
Extremely, extremely devoted and all that to clean living. We can get to a podcast about how Stella, my wife, influenced me in a negative, I guess, if you look at it as a religious way, but in a positive, if you look at it in a cultural way, because a lot of stuff I do, I would have never done if I hadn't met her.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. And then she's introduced me to a lot of fun things. No orgies. No, she'd introduced me to no orgies. None of that. No. Threesomes.
See,
no.
And me and Stella have
Just
the
make sure
Mormon
to clarify
church
that.
in our back.
Yes. Isn't that
So
something?
both of us, yeah.
Yep.
Which
How we all kind of
yeah.
the
Funny,
universe
tiny little world,
universe works things out to where it's like, hey, here's something you got in common with this person, that person. My oldest daughter is a lesbian, and I love her to death. I have two transgender children, and I love them to death. And I'm not going to get on the subject about a lot of stuff that's going on with that community because I don't feel like I have a place to say anything about it, to be honest with you. And it is a very controversial situation, and I hold that, between their mother and I. We had those discussions. But I love them to death. And they're all good kids, every one of them. I have 6 beautiful, beautiful kids that are law-abiding, smart, have careers. Some have started their own family. And so back to that the beginning of my life, it was in such disarray and chaos. But there comes a point where you have to decide, am I going to let this stuff keep continually to affect me in a negative way, which is what happened to me? Or am I going to say, screw that. I'm going to prove all of the naysayers, the caseworkers, the psychiatrists, the school teachers that I dealt with that didn't like me, the principals, all of those. Yeah. I'm going to prove them all wrong and make something of my life. And that's what you have to do. Everybody has to do that, right? We all got to grow up and take on responsibilities, or our life's going to be total chaos continuously.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I just decided, nope. I'm gonna just. It kind of motivated me, that little anger, as a kid.
It's a good motivator, really.
Being pissed off at the world. It's like, now take that, take that energy, and apply it in a positive way. Because I realize I'm just fucking myself. That's what I'm doing.
So how many foster homes do you think you went through? Or do you know?
That I can remember, I want to say about 10 or 11. From the age of whatever, 8 months. I don't know when they put me in foster home. Like I said, earliest recollection was when I was 4. So until I was 8 years old.
Were they all like
first 8 years of my life?
First 8 years of your life. Okay.
That was it.
So were they all like fairly long-term placements, or were some of them just like a couple days here, a couple days there? Like
the ones I remember, I would say they were, I don't know, 6 months to a year probably.
Yeah. It's because mine has a crazy number, man. In the 6 years he's been in care, has been through 18 homes. That's averages out to
and
like
you
3
got
a
him.
year.
You got him when he was 10.
10, just at the very end of 10.
Right. So 18 homes. In
18 homes in 6 years.
In 6 years.
6 years.
Wow. That's 3 homes a year. That's
Yeah.
like every 4 months. Boom.
The longest placement he had was a year and a half, and he had some of those little short placements.
Right.
And can I tell you something funny? See if this resonates with you at all.
Absolutely. I like good stories.
So, Spencer has several African American traits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this comes totally naturally because a lot of those homes were African American families,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, he has a couple of these traits that just pop up every once in a while.
Right.
Was that true in California? Did you have like a lot of African American homes?
I had one that I remember the most, and it was actually trying to get emotional here.
Yeah.
It was that home was the most loving, caring home I ever been in, where I never doubted for a second they cared about me.
Yeah,
I don't recall ever rebelling, getting pissed off, throwing a fit, wetting the bed, lashing out and all this stuff emotionally or anything when I lived there.
Mine has very similar affinities and story.
Yeah, and to this day,
Yeah.
I know where the house is I was at.
That is why he's adopted some of these traits.
Yeah,
Because he felt safe in those homes.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
That
it's
was
just
my
funny when it
experience.
comes out of him because he's a little tiny white
Right,
kid. You know
guy.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just it's really funny. But I encourage that because
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That it's culture to me.
it is.
It's not so much
Yeah,
color. It's culture.
it is.
You know?
That I agree.
Yeah.
It's learning that a skin tone doesn't matter in the world. It's what Martin Luther King said. It's that character that.
But in
that
general,
matters.
that character and that culture does seem
Right.
very open to like, oh, kid needs help. Let's
Well,
help him.
they're very-
You know what I mean?
Well, like my experience, they were. I'm going to say they were Baptist. I remember going to church with them, and so I'm sure they
Yep.
were Baptist. And to this day, I can go to Bakersfield, my hometown, in Greenfield, a suburb south of Bakersfield, and go to the street, McKee, and find that house. That's how much that family made an impression in my childhood. I know exactly, and I can't remember. I can remember living with some elder couples in
Right.
places. There was another family in Arvin. It was the last foster home before I arrived with the Englishes was in Arvin, California. That's the same scenario. It was an elder white couple, and sadly they had lost their son in a traffic accident. He was in high school. I think he had already graduated or was going to graduate.
Oh, man.
They had two daughters. And their names was Henderson, and they really cared about my brother and I. And I remember that home to this day. I can go to Arvin and go right to that house. It's still there where they lived when I was a kid. And so that's the only two families I can actually remember where they lived, and it's in my mind. It's part of my life that I can find those places. And this family that I lived with, I think if I remember right, their last name was Washington. And they lived on McKee in Greenfield. And I remember going when I was in kindergarten, because I went to McKee Elementary, my kindergarten year, or preschool or something like that. And I remember they were just absolute loving, caring people.
That's awesome.
And being a kid, you know, you don't have any. There's no mindset. Wait a minute, I'm in a black home.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a white kid. You don't think of that.
Yeah.
That's never enters my mind. I had friends. The brief moment I was with my biological mother when I was in kindergarten, she had us for a little while before she left us for good. And I had several friends. We ran the streets on Edison Highway in Bakersfield and Sterling. And there's a canal there. We'd jump in that canal. You know, you're not supposed to, but, you know, kids. And
Yeah.
we were snot-nosed kids. I mean, me and my brothers, we did some crazy stuff. We seen crazy stuff happen. We were in a motel where drugs went down and shootings and all kinds of crazy stuff happened when we were kids. And we were all around that, surrounded by it. But we had friends that were Mexicans. We had friends that were African Americans. We had friends that were white Okies. None of us ever... I don't
It never
recall
mattered
ever
when we were
thinking
kids,
about,
man. Yeah.
I got a black friend. No, we just went out and had fun and
Yeah.
ran the neighborhood and acted like fools, you know. But
So you said something I want to touch back on. You said your brother, that you guys were fostered together
yes, one of my
the whole
brothers.
time, or one placement, or
There was times I don't remember too much. I remember I was with so there's four boys. There's Joseph, who's the oldest, then Clarence, who was the second oldest, and then Gary, and then myself. And they put me with Joseph for a couple homes. I remember that. And then eventually they decided to put me with Clarence. So I always looked at it this way: the odd numbered siblings, the firstborn, number one, and the thirdborn, Gary, they put them together, and they took the even number of siblings, the second-born and the fourth-born, and put us together. And I was mostly with Clarence in foster homes, and then we wound up at the Englishes, and we both were adopted by Gary and Jesse.
oh, it's awesome.
I was 10 and he was 13 when that took place, and but you know, it's funny though. I'm never close. I'm not really close to any of my brothers because we were all just scattered out. Even
Yeah.
Clarence, because he had his demons that he dealt with growing up too, and so It's just crazy. I see my brothers. I haven't seen Clarence in quite a few years, but I've seen Gary and Joe when I go to Bakersfield because they still live there, and we've reconnected in a positive way. There was years there was some issues because they looked at me as being adopted, that I basically gave up on them and abandoned them. So there was that, and that's another memory I have. Again, it's all these negative memories. When I was going to be adopted, I remember that they had us. I don't know who set it up. I guess it was the caseworker, how it came about. But I remember that they had us get on the phone with my brother, Gary, who's almost exactly a year older than me. We're 2 days apart from being exactly a year apart. Same month and everything we're born in. And I remember getting on the phone, a little wall phone, rotary. Oh, yeah. It was yellow. I remember that. Standing in the kitchen with the phone and telling him I was going to be adopted, and he just was upset. He couldn't believe that.
Really?
Just didn't understand it. And I remember as a kid at 10 years old having the frame of mind to say to him, because he was upset because he's a Sarnowski. That's what we are, Sarnowskis. He's proud of that, and I get it. Yeah. And him being upset that he felt like I was leaving him. I was abandoning him. I'm going to be an English. I'm not going to be a Sarnowski anymore. And I remember telling him, I said, hey, Sarnowski's never wanted me.
Yeah.
And this is a family that wants me. And that's how it is. And that was my mindset. And so I became an English. And, but we still, there was still some stuff going on there for years. I'd visit them constantly. And that's another story too down the road. And, but the last time I was in Bakersfield and got together with them, it was like, we're all older. We know our days are limited,
Right.
We're way on that other side of the hill now. And it's like there's a lot of forgiving took place, or understanding, not forgiving. Yeah. A lot of understanding took place.
Well, you're mentally mature now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
You're not 10 years old and you don't understand what's happening.
No, exactly. And he was 11 when that took place.
Yeah, so.
Yes, and it's, and again, and my brother Gary, I have no qualms. I'll tell people this till the day I die. He's my biggest hero. Of all the people I know on this planet that I've ever met, I've ever been blessed to be friends with, get to know, hang out with, family, non-family, Gary Sarnowski is definitely my hero. Because the shit he went through compared to me, I had it made in the shade.
And that was your oldest brother?
That was my brother that was a year older than me.
Yeah.
The one that just couldn't understand why. He always was a tender-hearted person. The abandonment didn't affect him in that crazy, fucked up way. He just became a super compassionate, caring individual. Very tender-hearted. And him and I would get in fights, literally on the school grounds, which was kind of, here's a comical thing. So I'm living with the Hendersons in Arvin, California, and I'm going to Sierra Vista Elementary in Arvin. I'm in first grade, and I get in a fight in the schoolyard because that's all I did was fight. I don't even know when it was over. But I'm in this fight, and all of a sudden, somebody comes up behind me, grabs my arms, and locks them up from behind. And I'm trying to get away, and this person's telling me, Johnny, you don't need to fight. Stop it, stop, all this stuff. And I don't know who it is. And I'm just like, what the, who the? So I just, flung my elbow back as hard as I could and popped him in the face and bloodied their nose. I turned around. It was my brother Gary. Had no idea. He was in a freaking foster home in Arvin, California, a small city southeast of Bakersfield. Wow. He was in a foster. Had together. No idea. He didn't know. I didn't know.
That's crazy.
He just showed up on whatever recess, and there I was, going at it with somebody. He came out to stop his big brother. That's you need crazy. To stop. And I popped him one, and that's how he was. He was always, him and I would get into arguments and fights because he always felt like our biological mother, Polly, would come back to get us. Oh, she's coming back to get us. She cares about us. And I'd be like, no, she don't. She left us in a motel, dude. She bailed in the middle of freaking night and left us there, four boys.
So that was the second time, right?
That was the second time.
At the motel. Now, you were 8 months when you went into care the first time.
Right, because of what I've been told by some family members, on
so,
that.
So how did that end? How did she came back, got you about when? So,
The last family I was with was at that time was a family I'm talking about, the Washingtons on McKee, the African American family. And I remember the caseworker showing up that day, picking me up. They already knew I was coming. The family did, that I was staying with. So they already had my stuff packed. I had no idea. It's the thing. The kid never knows anything.
no, yeah.
And usually when I go foster home, it's that my belongings is in a black, garbage bag or whatever. I never.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
hate that.
suitcases. There's nothing
I hate
elaborate about it. So I'm ready to go. They told me caseworker's coming to get me, and so she picked me up, and she takes me to Polly. Polly's living in this motel at the corner of Sterling and Edison Highway, and there I am reunited, Clarence and I, with her. And
But not the other two.
no, and the other two.
Oh, and the-
she got
okay.
us all back.
Wow.
And because she did what it was necessary, that it was required by the
Yeah,
county
there's-
to get us back, she got us back. And my older sister, she was only in the system real briefly because Polly's parents, Jack and Zelma Johnson, cared about her, and the courts offered for us all to go to them, because that's what they do. They go to the nearest relative. Would you be interested in taking these kids?
Right.
And they didn't want us. They just wanted my sister. So they took my sister, and she was raised by them pretty much. And we got to stay in the system and go through hell on earth. Wonderful grandparents. So she got us back. And then that turned into
How
some
old were
crazy.
you roughly then?
I was about 4.
About
About
4.
that,
Okay,
4 or
so-
5.
so
I
that
was in
didn't last long.
Well, I was 5. I guess 5. I was in kindergarten.
So that didn't last very long then.
No. I was in kindergarten, and the earliest picture that exists, not the youngest, because like a comedian said, all pictures are when you're younger.
Yeah, every
obviously,
picture, yeah.
duh.
Mitch
You take it
Hedberg.
right now. Hey, you were younger there. So the earliest picture that exists to me is that kindergarten picture at Virginia Avenue Elementary. I went there for a little bit.
The one you use in the logo.
The one I used in the logo, yes.
For the band.
Yep. And that was when I was in kindergarten. That's when she had me. And it wasn't long after that picture was taken, she bailed. Because I was with her long enough to go. I remember going out to the fields. Like I said, they were migrant workers. And traveling, being with them. And her parents, Jack and Zelma, worked for a company out of Bakersfield that had potato harvesters and a trucking company and all that. They had their all set up. So they would hire these migrant workers, and they would all take them. And they had camps, like Sunset Camp, the notorious Sunset Camp, where they basically based the Grapes of Wrath over.
Oh, wow.
Was based on that Sunset Camp, which is, I lived near that camp when I was a kid. So anyway, they had these camps, and you'd travel, and you'd go and the adults would go out and work the fields, the potato harvesters, and I did that. I wasn't on the harvester, obviously, because I was a kid, but I did other things. And we did that, I remember, through the summer, I guess, or whatever it was, and then, boom, it was gone. And then she just left us one night. She
At
just
the
said,
hotel.
yeah, she just told us, if I'm not here in the morning, I don't want you boys running the streets and acting, crazy or whatever, however she put it. And we woke up next morning because we had a bedroom, and it was a mattress on the floor, and that's what we slept on. The 4 boys of us, we just slept on that mattress. Woke up, and I kid you not, we walked, house is completely empty. She took everything, gone. And then I never seen her again until I was 19.
Jesus.
So there was that. But life goes on.
Wow. When you saw her at 19, was she better? Was she? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah,
had she cleaned
was,
her shit up?
She was 42, I think. Yeah, we had a good conversation, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
We'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, that sounds
we
like a
had
whole-
a really good conversation. But I know we're getting close to the end of this episode. I want to just say this. The best way you can heal is to forgive. And that's it. Just decide. Time to move on. She had her demons. She went through some shit, just like my adopted mother, who was worse person that really treated me the most horrific in my childhood by leaps and bounds. But then I knew that my adopted mother had hell on earth too when she was growing up. And then
again with the generational
you
legacy
did
thing.
exactly that chain, the cycle, that But it was when I was older and had that, like my oldest daughter, that frame of mind, reality, and realizing, wait a minute, that front part instead of that back part. I realized then, they went through some shit, so no wonder they did what they did, and I can't hold that against them. It's messed up, because it's the people that treated them the way they treated them when they were young that caused them to be what they were when they were adults.
Yeah.
And then I got the rewards of that. I got the benefit, the negative shit because of that. So then how am I going to change that? Am I going to treat my kids the same way they treated me? Am I going to be that way? There's a lot of things I did with my children because of them. That was the opposite. I learned the discipline side of things, all of that. And I decided, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show them all. I'm not going to be that person. And I literally, conscientiously made that decision to sever that tie from the past.
Break that cycle.
To break that cycle. Yeah. And then music gave me an opportunity to be able to sit down with you, because that's how it all worked, to where now I can say, let's do this podcast. Let's tell people about some stuff I went through. Yeah. And we're going to have friends on. We were talking about this last night with our good friend Phil Martin. We're going to have on some psychologists and psychiatrists to discuss those things, because the reason this is called Backseat Therapy is because it's and I got that. I want to give credit where credit's due. My oldest daughter came up with that term.
Oh, yeah.
She came up with that term, backseat therapy, because she's like, nice. Pops, how people are always like backseat drivers? I go, yeah. She goes, I think we ought to have an album. You ought to an album, call it Backseat Therapy. And it's like, ooh, that's a cool thought.
Okay, podcast.
Because, right, and that's why we call this Backseat Therapy, because we're not geniuses. We're not PhD educated. But we're speaking from life experiences. And this is how it is, and this is how I overcame it, this is how I moved on. And then what you're dealing with is a foster parent that's going to adopt. I guess I don't know if you're a foster parent, but you're going to adopt.
Yeah, and actually, so ours was part of a sibling set that ended up getting broke up. Okay, when he went into care, there were 4 of them.
Wow.
The 3 that survived, all ended up getting split up.
Wow.
Yeah, and so now after our adoption, we're going to kind of chill for a little bit, but we've already got 3 extra beds. We really see a need in the foster world for sibling sets. So we're probably going to foster some sibling sets.
That does help. I mean, it was good for me that I had my brother Clarence in my life.
Yeah.
And briefly Joe. I don't know what it'd been like. I don't know how I would have handled things if I was all by myself.
Well, and
my brother Gary was by himself.
And that's what I'm saying. I know that it has hurt Spencer not having his family around. He asks about them.
I get that.
Yeah. Like and when I can, I show him pictures.
Right.
I'm like, here, he has some of his sister's ashes.
Oh, jeez.
So we. Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, it's not a good. It's not a good history there. We'll have him on the show sometime.
Yeah. I mean, because then you can get because I'm sure he's got some insights in the system today.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
I know it's gotten better from when I was a kid, because there's CPS, Child Protection Services now.
Yeah.
That didn't exist, I don't believe. Or if it did, it wasn't around when I was a kid.
And actually, as of 2015, Dr. Karen Purvis created a thing called TBRI. It's Trust-Based Relational Interventions. And I mean, I think since the beginning of time, parents have looked for the handbook. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
yeah.
And it used to be a thing called Love and Logic.
Yeah.
Was the parenting model that they taught people. And years and years later, it just doesn't work.
No.
So this new model, this TBRI, seems to be a really effective, cool way of parenting, and we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Our therapist is actually a TBRI trained therapist, and she's catty corner. Her office is right over there.
Nice.
And so yeah, we'll do that. But I want to end this in kind of a positive note, man.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about kids in the system.
Yes.
And we're talking about a pretty rough reality.
Yeah.
Of how you got into care.
Right.
Okay, and how my son got into care. But this can really happen to anybody, man. Okay,
Yes.
like you're one car wreck away from your children
That's
being
it too.
into foster care.
And you touched on something.
You know,
You really touched on something. I can honestly, I think that society at large has no idea about foster kids. The common thing is neglectful parents, drugs or something was involved, abuse, whatever. They were taken out of the homes. But sometimes
we're
it's
very
just
close.
that.
All of us are just a couple wrong moves.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a wrong move. It doesn't have to be your wrong move.
Right.
Somebody else can decide this for you.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes it's just that tragedy. It's just tragedy, and there's nobody there to step in. Because I do know in the state of California, in Kern County, where I was raised, they do seek family, the next closest kin.
Yeah.
And if there's no avenue there to place the child, then they retain them, and then they go into that system, and then all that crazy shit takes place.
But there's just a lot of factors, okay? And if you find yourself in a position to where you can't take care of your kids and you are struggling and whatever it is, there are resources out there. Please look for the resources. Here locally in Wichita, it's ComCare.
Right.
Drawing a blank, but there are resources out there. Please get the help. There's if your pride means so much to you that you're willing to throw your kids under the bus, then maybe you shouldn't have those kids anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But seek the help. Get it taken care of.
And not that we're ever, not that I hope people don't take it that I don't like the system. I call it the system because that's what we grew up as kids. That's what we called it.
It's a systematic way of handling this problem.
And I hope people don't look at it like the system's all messed up. There are, like with anything in life, there's pros and cons. Everybody's evolving. Things are always evolving and trying to fix things. Sometimes you overcorrect it, and it makes it kind of worse. Sometimes you don't correct it enough, and it's still the worst. So, I mean, everybody's intentions, like I said, in the beginning, everybody's always got the good intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that what happens is the children don't have a voice as much as they need to have. And this ain't playing on, the kid needs to be silent, be seen, not heard thing. But the truth is, those kids, I wish somebody would listen to me. I wish somebody would listen to my brother Gary, the stuff he went through. And they totally ignored him. Yeah. But that's what this is about. I'm hoping that through these podcasts, we can touch people on both sides of the spectrum. The foster parent, the adult that went through being a foster kid and trying to adapt to society with all this baggage and crazy shit in their head, that they can see that, hey, here's a guy that he's old, he's bald, but he turned the corner. It can be done, but it has to be done by you, not by anybody else. It has to be done by you. And in the system also, they see, maybe might realize, a few things, and here's somebody that's been through this, and they've got some ideas or things that might improve the situation better for the child. And it just, here's the thing I know it's just mind blowing to me. When I was a kid, I don't think there was that many foster kids. It was not a common thing, but today there are so many foster kids.
And that's one of the real problems with the system right now is it's
volume.
Overburdened.
It is it is.
Our caseworker has 30 plus kids.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Okay, you have 30 days in a month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
So now this kid gets on average 1 day of your time a month.
That's right. And back then I didn't like my caseworkers.
Well, I'm thinking,
because I totally felt like they didn't give a rat's ass about me. Yeah. But like you said, the volume when I got older, I realized, because you look at things,
Yeah.
in a different perspective, and I'm like, my God, they're so overtaxed and overburdened. I can't hold them responsible for the abuse I went through.
I get frustrated with some of the workers in our thing, but it's a frustration. I can't blame them.
Yeah.
Okay, because like I said, they're just overburdened.
That is it.
They're mentally taxed out.
Yep.
You know
And
what I
they
mean?
have a family to go home to. They have
Exactly right.
responsibilities outside of that job, and it's like they got that 9 to 5 situation, and they can let loose whatever. But I mean, it's tough. It's tough. But I'm mentioning a positive note. So I want to say this. I work with a group in my hometown, Bakersfield, California, Covenant Community Services. And when I got older and I started this music thing, and for some reason people like my music or like our music. Aaron's my bass player, co-writer with the rest of the guys. And it kind of opened up this avenue where, again, back to what I said at the beginning, I'm an orphan, and people are like, why don't you write a book? I don't have time to write a book. Let's do a podcast, tell these stories, anecdotes, and mix all up, so help people that may be going through the same thing, have went through the same thing I went through, because everybody has a story is what I've always said. Everybody, this is mine. That's all I can do is tell mine. But one of the things I wanted to do was, like, once things started really kind of opening up, notoriety, however you want to call it, I don't feel like I'm anything special, but I do see that there's this way that I can harness the popularity that Orphan, Jon and Abandonment has acquired, and get people conscientious of the needs of foster youth. So Covenant Community Services in Bakersfield, California, help aged out foster youth.
Oh, that's a big one.
That's huge to me, and I always wanted to help. Because my brothers were that. My 2 other brothers were aged out foster youth.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I know what they went through when they were like, because, it's just the way the system is. You turn 18, you're a legal adult. See you later. They have a few things where they'll follow up, they'll try to help you out, but then after that caseworker ain't got time to be burdened by you no more.
They're overburdened.
Yeah,
It's
they got that 30 cases, and now you were number 20, number 30. You're gone. Now they got a new person to replace you. So, what I love about this organization is they help these kids, and I'm working with them, and I was so blessed to meet them. And so I'm going to be doing some stuff in next month. We do this Covenant Community Concert thing in my hometown, Bakersfield, California. Check it out on Facebook, on all the social media, on orphanjon.com. You'll see it there. Get a ticket. If you're in that community, come out and support what's going on, because these people it's all volunteer. It's all giving to help these youth. And it's tremendously important, because here's something I found out, because I have a friend, Marty Sharples, that works with the homeless. She's an advocate for the homeless, and she does a lot of work with them.
Yeah.
A huge percentage of your homeless population in every freaking city in America are aged out foster kids. And again, it goes back to what I'm talking about, that cycle, that thing, that back here, all that stuff. Yep. They're not on the streets being drug addicts because they wanted to be on the streets being drug addicts.
It's a circumstantial situation.
It's their way of escaping the fact that they were abused, they were neglected, they were beaten, they were all of this stuff, abandoned. They go in the system. The system says, we're here to take care of you. Oh, you're 18. Now we're not going to take care of you.
Yeah, then they quit.
And they go through that cycle again of being abused, neglected, abandoned. How did they deal with it? Well, here's a drug. Here's this. Here's that. Here's some fentanyl.
And after 18 years of that, man, it's just like your mental state.
Exactly. So my point is this: if you see a young person on the street come up to the gas station, don't ridicule them. Don't tell them, get a fucking job. Because you know what? The percentages are there. That's an aged out foster youth that already life started. They were in the negative. 50%. They were already screwed.
Yeah.
Just show a little compassion, man. And so that's what Covenant Community Services does in Bakersfield. And I love those people, Randy, Martin, and Kim, and everybody involved. And I'm so honored to help them with this cause. And so I'm going to be there in March 9th. We're going to have the Covenant Community Concert, and it's going to be to help. It's a benefit to help raise funds to help them in their what they're doing with all these kids. And it's amazing. I mean, it's so amazing. They help these kids with housing, education, moving on, and being productive citizens, taxpayers for all those legislators, taxpayers in society. And so, you know, that's and they're a sponsor. You know, they're not sponsored, but I mean, I want people to be aware of them. Now, we do have some sponsors. We got Salty's Barbecue in Bakersfield, California, a good friend of mine, Jeff Salters. And we want to mention the Red Shed up here in Hutch.
Yep.
Jeff and Merle and all of them, so they're sponsoring us, so we're kind of excited about that. So it's time to, the producers like giving us the finger. You need to shut up.
Hey, so that was episode 1.
That was episode 1.
How do you think?
I think it's a good start. We'll
right?
find out. People start cussing me out again on social media. Like, eh. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you for being with us.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll post the links up to Covenant Community Services.
Yes, please do.
And
we will do that.
And we might post up some links for local services too.
Yes.
Like I said, man,
we're hoping we want this to grow. We want to get that out there, get the awareness, because people don't know. I mean, a lot of people don't know. They got their lives and they're living.
Well, it's just not talked about too much.
No, it's not.
So I'm glad we're able to.
That's why I'm doing it.
About it.
Yeah, that's why we're doing it. And so I hope this helps. This first episode and the next episode, stick around because we're going to delve into some other crazy crap.
You'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Little boy playing in the street. Worn clothes, no shoes on his feet.